So with that, we're down to the last of today's albums, and no discussion of bad celebrity albums would be complete without a look at the grandpappy of them all. I'm talking about Danny Bonaducci and his only album, which was released back in 1973. And I hope I don't kill the guy off by discussing this. I mean, I only managed to kill off Blinky, and David Bowie died not too long after I referenced him. Come to think of it, I have 24 years of blood on my hands from this show. Anyway, but I digress. Haven't you always wanted to hear a 13-year-old kid spit out sexually suggestive lyrics? Not that that's never happened before on this show, or even on this episode, come to think of it, but you know the drill.
I'll be your magician, gonna conjure up a lover's brew, and once you're under my spell, honey, I'll make love to you. Abracadabra.
Well, that's it for today's archive. Join us next time when I attempt to complete a crossword puzzle and fail. 'Cause, I'm old and stuff. Come to think that I can't remember shit anymore unless it has something to do with the 70s, 80s, or 90s, but, my cardboard box has held up better than I have. Awkward pause, awkward pause, awkward pause. Yeah, it's good enough. Moving on. I hate this stupid neighborhood. Let's see what else I have to do today. I swear, whatever happened to just good old-fashioned paper? Oh, goody, another nostalgia show. I love the teens. Couldn't be I love the tens. No, you gotta make the 50-something narrator guy sound like a dirty old man. Oh, whatever. I left the mic running. It's fine by me. Let's do this. Hey, everybody! Remember the teens? Well, I sure do. Let's step in the old time machine and revisit that era of smartphones, internet memes, and gluten-free diets. And speaking of internet memes, remember this one?
These nuts.
This and more on the next I Love the Teens. And we're good. Let's see what else I have to do here. Oh, shit. I forgot about this job. I tell you. And I thought people were in the head 20 years ago. Well, the sooner I start, the sooner I finish. See, still got the mic running. Good. Whatever. There we are. He stops, waiting for me to calm. I do, and raise my head to gaze at him, my mouth open as my pounding heart struggles to calm. Do you know how intoxicating you smell, Miss Steele? He murmurs, and keeping his eyes on mine, he pushes his nose into my pubic hair and inhales. I flush scarlet everywhere, feeling faint, and I instantly close my eyes. I can't watch him do that. He blows gently up the length of my sex. Oh, I like this. He gently tugs at my pubic hair. Perhaps we'll keep this. Oh, please, I beg. I like it when you beg me, Anastasia. I groan. Tit for tat is not my usual style, Miss Steele, he whispers as he gently blows up and... left the damn camera on again. I hate my life. Thank God. 1,000 episodes of archive. Now that's a nightmare, Benny boy. I don't have a topic for the 100th episode.
This portion of Discovery is brought to you in part by Packard Bell.
America's at work with Packard Bell.
Admittedly, Commodore computers were never in my sphere growing up. In fact, until very recently, I'd had no experience beyond some borderline fruitless dinking around with a couple of emulators. My first experience with a computer at all was with an Apple IIe in kindergarten. My family's first computer was a Packard Bell 386 with MS-DOS. So you might be asking yourself, why did I pick the ultra-common Commodore 64 for the Oddity archive? I mean, the Commodore Amiga is usually what was used for the preview guide, the Weather Channel, and all those other archivisms, and the first two editions of the Apple computer were weirder and more homebrew. Well, I picked the Commodore 64 for, admittedly, blatantly commercial reasons. Well, that and the idea of computer programs on audio cassettes, half-baked homebrew stuff, and programs for tasks that would just be simpler by hand seemed too stereotypically archivian to pass up. Having said that, I would fully welcome the donation of a working Amiga, preferably including the preview guide software. In 1976, Jack Trammell's Commodore International, up until that point best known for its calculators, was trying to avoid a looming financial hole. Commodore's new head of engineering, Chuck Peddle, had been trying to convince Trammell that calculators were a dead end. Instead, Peddle argued that Commodore should go into the then new world of home computers. After being offered a stab at the Apple II, which Trammell deemed too expensive, Trammell charged Peddle and a couple other employees with the task of making a home computer that operated on the cheap, accessible MOS 6502 microprocessor, a chip from Peddle's old company, MOS Technologies. The idea being to make, as Trammell put it, computers for the masses, not the classes. Commodore's first computer, the Commodore PET, or Personal Electronic Transfer, was introduced in June of 1977. In 1980, Commodore introduced its first stab at a crossover computer/video game console, the VIC-20. And in August of 1982, Commodore unveiled what was basically a revised VIC-20. I'm talking about the Commodore 64. The 64 sported, 64K of RAM, as well as 20K of ROM. Big numbers. Alongside the 64 were a couple of holdover peripherals from previous machines, namely the 1541 floppy disk drive and, more infamously, the dataset drive, which of course ran on standard audio cassettes. The 64 proved to be a huge success. Indeed, at its peak, the 64 accounted for, by some accounts at least, in upwards of half the home computer market.
The people who have computerized more homes, businesses, and schools than anyone else introduce a great new package for the Commodore 128.
In 1985, Commodore attempted to replace the 64 with the Commodore 128, a twice as powerful update of the 64. One of the 128's big selling points was that it was backwards compatible with the 64's programs. This also proved to be the very thing that impeded the 128 in the marketplace, as most programs were still being released with the 64 in mind, something that never really changed. Anyway, despite attempts at further updating and refining the Commodore, including that archive perennial, the Amiga, the 64 continued to be Commodore's main breadwinner. Much to my shock, while Commodore's other machines came and went, the 64 just kept quietly rolling along, all the way up until 1994, when Commodore went out of business. I didn't think you'd want to have to spend the episode reading my host segments. So, when I purchased my Commodore 64, I found myself kind of at a loss as to what kind of software to look at. And so what I did was I just went on eBay and picked out one of those wholesale lots of random discs. And what I got was half a box of dead discs. But among the working discs, I got some games and some educational stuff and some productivity software. And among the non-game working titles that I got, I found myself just asking the same couple of questions over and over. Wouldn't this task have been a lot simpler with just a good old-fashioned pen and paper? Or wouldn't that be a lot more educational with, I don't know, a book? So, in other words, this montage is all about the stuff that was only on the computer just because it could be. Realizing that my lack of experience with the Commodore 64 and its software might not make for a very compelling archive episode, I reached out to the one and only old school computer geek that I know, and his name is Ben, and he, no relation by the way, he runs this website called Classical Gas Emissions. And this is actually where a lot of the songs from the first record ripoffs episode came from. So, he's got some pretty odd stuff in his collection. But I reached out to him and he offered to send me a stack of floppies to check out for this episode. And I still owe him the shipping costs for him, come to think of it. But here they are. And I haven't looked at any of these yet. And honestly, I'm absolutely terrified of what might be on these discs. And anybody that's ever trudged through his website knows exactly why.
Hello?
Hi, Barbie. It's Ken. Would you like to go to the prom?
Sounds like fun.
Great. See you in an hour.
So yeah, there's a lot of adult software for the Commodore 64. And I kind of knew this was going to happen, and since it's become kind of an unintentional tradition around here, I figured when researching this episode that I would just go ahead and preemptively take a little poke around the internet. Get it? Poke commands, basic programming, whatever. I'd take a little poke around the internet just to see if I couldn't cobble together another installment of Oddity Archive After Dark 8-bit edition, albeit by way of an emulator. Just a heads up, this one gets pretty nasty.
Ooh, ah, oh, 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 ooh, ah.
Before you go complaining about all the stuff that I did not discuss in this episode, because I know I skipped a lot. I mean, I never even got around to the cartridges, but call it a hunch, but I think there's going to have to be at least a second volume on this topic at some point, so don't get your panties in a bunch. But anyway, that does it for our 100th trip through the great audiovisual landfill. And here's to another 100. Oh, God.
I'll be your magician. Touch you soft